Good morning. I'm Herb Heathcote. I'm substituting for Dean today. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome, everyone. Not very many announcements this morning. Reverend Zachary's going to have a special session on rest as a spiritual practice after church today, so that's coming up. But other than that, I'm going to pass it over to Fran Corden.
So I have the great pleasure of introducing to you all our pianist for today and also for times in the future. This is Meredith Patterson, and she has moved to Silverdale from Austin, Texas. And I say, you know, Silverdale, that's kind of a bit of a drive. She says, I'm from Texas. It's a snap. So Meredith was the pianist for her UU congregation in Austin, and let us know very soon after she started attending here that she plays the piano. So needless to say, we followed up. So in addition to her musical talents, which you will experience are quite extraordinary, she's also a neurological nurse. So she's a woman of many parts and is a volunteer pianist for us as part of our congregation, along with Audrey Blair, who of course you know plays regularly for us. So as your head of your music committee, I can tell you I am enormously grateful that we now have two talented pianists who are members of our congregation. So thank you, Meredith.
Let us take a breath together, breathing in and out, centering ourselves in this moment and time together, this time we have set aside to be in community and to seek out those sources of meaning the world has to offer. For our opening words, I'd like to share reading number 557 in the back of our hymnal. And these words come from David H. Eaton. He writes, "All living substance, all substance of energy, being, and purpose are united to share the same destiny. All people, those we love and those we know not of, are united and share the same destiny. Birth to death, we share this unity with the sun, the earth, flowers of the field, snowflakes, volcanoes, and moonbeams. Birth, life, death, unknown, known, unknown. Our destiny from unknown to unknown. May we have the faith to accept this mystery together and build upon the everlasting truths we find. Come, let us worship together.
As some of you may know, I make a living as a software engineer. From the year 2001 until 2011, I worked for a company that wrote software that helps manage shipping terminals. Most of our products were designed to work on containerized terminals, and they had names such as Mainsail and Spinnaker. Cargo and containers accounts for the vast majority of all shipping. Cargo, which is not suited to being in a container, is called break bulk. We had a software product for that too. It was called Genoa. In 2004, a colleague and I went to Long Beach, California to visit a break bulk terminal. The company for which I worked was a subsidiary of the company that operated this break bulk terminal, and it had been decided that our software, Genoa, was going to be the terminal operating system for this terminal. It was going to be replacing a system of real paper and manual processes and ancient folklore. Our first morning in the terminal was spent in a conference room talking to the people who worked there, so we could understand how their requirements for what they actually do fit into our software. However, it became clear that they didn't like the possibility of this transition when they said things like, "We don't need this software. The company doesn't understand what we do here." The company that operated this terminal operated many, many other terminals, most of which were containerized. My colleague and I persisted. How do you know when ships are coming and what will be on them? How do you know when truckers are going to arrive to pick up the stuff that was on the ships? And a question that is really important on a container terminal with thousands and thousands of containers, how do you know where all of the stuff is? Before lunch, we went on a tour of the terminal. All along this countertop near the door, they had laid out different sorts of paperwork in roughly the order of events that were expected to happen that day. So someone would be going out to meet a trucker, and they would just go to the beginning of this paperwork that was all laid out and grab the right one and go talk to the trucker. Outside, they had an area that was full of John Deere tractors. Another area that was full of enormous coils of wire, 6 feet tall, 6 feet in diameter, stacked 3 or 4 high. There were hundreds of these coils of wire. There was a pyramid of grain. There were piles of 1-inch rebar, each 50 feet long or so. This entire pile must have weighed hundreds, if not thousands of tons. They knew where the things on their terminal were because they were huge and they had lots of them. At lunch, my colleague and I agreed that our software really wasn't a very good fit for this terminal. But it had been decided they were getting it anyway. I dedicate the lighting of our flaming chalice to that period of investigation before change. Please join with me in repeating our affirmation as printed in your order of service. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness, because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
Do, 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 do. Hello. It's funny you're all here again. It's like this is a ritual we have. So, in the spirit of continuing to use the Time for All Ages as a place to have fun, to try new things, I would like to try another game with all of you. I'm going to explain it first, and then Gregory has volunteered to come up and help me demonstrate it. But once we do that, I'm going to ask for a few volunteers to jump in. But let me explain first. So this is an improv game, and it's actually a game that oftentimes is called It's Tuesday. But it's not Tuesday this morning, it is Sunday. And so we are going to play It's Sunday instead. How this game is going to work is that one of my volunteers is going to take the line, It's Sunday, and offer it to me. I'll be the second person. And my job is to respond to that line. As a volunteer, you can say It's Sunday however you want. You can say, It's Sunday! You can say, It's Sunday. You could say, It's Sunday. I am going to take the tone, the body language, and riff off of that. Add a line of dialogue. After that, the volunteer responds to whatever I said and ends the scene. And we'll do this a few times. So, Gregory, would you help? You're going to be the It's Sunday person. Give me a moment, though. Okay.
It's Sunday.
Oh, you're right. It is Sunday. How did it end up being Sunday so quickly?
I don't know. Time seems to pass so quickly now that I'm really old.
It's a simple game. The goal is to respond to however that line, It's Sunday, is offered and to continue it going for a little bit. Well, do I have a volunteer who would like to try? Jenny, come on up. Okay, so you're going to be the It's Sunday. That's a good idea. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, good idea. Okay.
I say it's Sunday.
Yes.
It's Sunday!
Oh my God, it is Sunday. I can't believe it.
It's amazing that the sun is shining and we're all here together.
It is amazing. I'm so glad you're here too, Jenny. Thank you. That was simple. Can you try another one? Maybe you have another way of saying It's Sunday, a different feeling that you want to express. Any volunteers?
It's Sunday.
I know, and tomorrow's Monday.
I don't know why I still feel sad on Sunday knowing that I don't have to go to work anymore on Monday, but I used to hate Sunday because the next day would be Monday and I'd have to go to work. So why do I still feel this way after all these years? It's Sunday.
It's just how people work, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's do one more. Someone feeling bold or creative. I see a head shaking no. Not after that. Come on. Oh, I'm going to go with Susan. I put Tyler on this spot a lot.
I'm pressured here. Should not sit in the front. It's Sunday?
It is Sunday.
No.
Yeah. Don't we have to be somewhere?
Take a hike?
Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, are we? Thank you. Oh. There is a pill on the floor here, FYI. There's a few. So what did people notice in that game? What did you notice? Liz? Oh,
Okay, the tone of the person who says it's Sunday sets up the other person to respond
yeah.
in that same sort of tone. And that's where you have less rapport, you speak in this kind of.
Yeah, so that the tone that we use kind of dictates where the response is going to go. The tone sets the sort of the initial conditions of the conversation. What else? Susan?
Everybody comes to some place with their own feelings, their own
Yeah,
things that are going on for them.
yeah,
The reasons when we have meetings, I like to go around and check in, so we know where people are.
yeah. I think that's everyone comes into a space, that same situation, it's Sunday, with a different way of relating to it. We all come into this space with slightly different circumstances in our life. Good. What else?
I would like someone to have a talk.
Oh, a microphone?
Yeah, that would help.
Well, we'll get better at this, I promise. I will, for this, I will just try to repeat back for people, but being mindful that a microphone is oftentimes helpful. I will be better at that. Any other observations?
It's almost hard to come up with different ways to say it after 2 or 3 or 4
Yeah.
iterations. Like, what else? How else could I say that?
So yeah, after maybe a few people have set the example, it kind of maybe becomes challenging. There maybe even might be a pressure to do the same thing. So one of the things about this game that I really kind of noticed is how much the circumstances and where we're coming from play into what happens in our interactions, but also how much is communicated in person together. Have any of you ever gotten an email and you're not sure how to read the tone of the email? It might be a simple line like, "It's Sunday," and we can interpret that in many different ways. And one of the beautiful things I think about coming together like we do with all the complexities of our lives is we get to come together and meet each other where we're at. We get to listen to each other. We get to check in and feel and hear where people are at. And it's okay if we're all not in the same place at the same time. That happens. But to take the time to listen to where people are and to respond to that, I think is a gift that we can offer each other. So, that is all the time for all ages that I have for us today. It's Sunday. Let's take another breath together. In whatever way is most comfortable for yourself, just take a moment to rest. Center yourself. Relax. Just be. In this space of presence to ourselves, to one another, and the web of creation, I offer these words of blessing for the spirit of presence by spiritual writer John O'Donohue. First, let's take another breath. Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you of all falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity always mirror the inner dignity of your soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracle that seeks no attention. Be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. May you be present in this moment and the moments ahead, to yourself, to each other, and to all of creation. May it be so. Amen.
On many Sundays, we set aside some time for the sharing of joys and sorrows. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share, please come forward, state your name, and in a few brief sentences, share your joy or sorrow. Pour a little water in the bowl for a joy so that your joy may buoy us all up, or place a stone in the bowl for a sorrow so that we may all share your burden. For those of you at home, please take a few moments to reflect upon your own joys and sorrows. As a reminder, this part of the service is neither live streamed nor recorded. Here at Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church, we try to build bridges, both between people in our community and people in the wider world. But as any civil engineer knows, building bridges requires resources. If we reach out to you with an offering basket, will you reach out to us? If you are visiting for the first time, please feel free to let the baskets pass you by. You are our guest, and we are happy simply that you are with us today. Would the ushers come forward to collect the offering? Thank you for your gifts.
When was the last time that you saw a working phone booth in the wild? It's probably been a little while. I am not all that old, but I remember in my childhood when phone booths were still a standard feature of our society. I used to have to keep quarters with me to call my parents when I'd be playing at the park, or to go and call my grandmother long distance from the payphone. A few weekends ago, I saw my first payphone in the wild in some time. I spent the weekend on Whidbey Island with some friends, and one morning we got up and decided that we were going to go take a walk and get some coffee, stretch our legs a little. We got up and the group of us got ready, and we set out into the little town of Langley on Whidbey Island. As we're walking around and we see the collection of shops, art stores, and variety of candy shops, actually, I noticed something up ahead on the corner. It was a phone booth. Not gonna lie, I got a little bit excited. It was not like the British phone booths that we might think of, the red boxy ones. It was one of those classic glass and blue painted metal phone booths with the stainless steel shelf mounted in there, the phone book that's all yellow and soggy, and a touch tone phone mounted in the corner. I got excited. I went up to the phone and picked up the receiver and listened. A familiar buzz came over the line. I did the first thing that came to mind. I dialed a number. It was my own cell phone number, because to be honest, at this point in life, that's really about the only phone number I have memorized anymore. A distant, memory washed over me as I heard the phone ring. However, instead of feeling the buzz of my cell phone in my pocket, a voice came over the line. It was one of those pre-recorded, sort of automated voices. It said, "This phone can only make local calls. Calls to cell phones or out-of-area calls are not allowed. If you have reached this recording in air, please hang up and try your call again." It was at that moment I registered that this phone didn't have a slot to put coins in. It's a free phone. And then I noticed the little sign posted just below the receiver that said, "This phone is provided by the Whidbey Island Chamber of Commerce to contact local businesses." What good is this phone to me, I thought. Isn't that why I have a cell phone anyway? I can look up any business and pull out my phone from my pocket and call them. What good is this phone book? Or phone booth. I'd say the phone book too at this point, to be honest. As my mind questioned the relevance of this particular phone booth, I was reminded of something a colleague of mine, the Reverend Sarah Schur, shared at our board retreat this last August. Sarah joined our board retreat by Zoom, and we were doing some of our planning for the year, and she had come to talk to us about what dynamics other congregations in our region are experiencing. Where are the successes? Where are the pitfalls? What are the hallmarks of the communities that seem to be thriving? There was a list of a few of these hallmarks and traits of communities, but my takeaway from that time was this line. Sarah said, "We're not trying to build a better phone booth." She started with the same question, asking, "When was the last time that you saw a phone booth?" "Well, it's been a while." And she reached into her pocket and held up to the Zoom screen a cell phone. The phone booth has been replaced. Innovations and inventions have come and made it obsolete. We aren't trying to build a better phone booth. In the past, I've talked about, I think for me, one of the constants in life, a metaphysical truth, is that change happens. We can resist it, we can embrace it, we can guide it. Like it or not, change happens. This isn't just me. This is something that the scientific community embraces, theologians embrace. As I was preparing, thought back to an essay I read in my undergrad. It's an essay by the philosopher Thomas Kuhn, who he was a philosopher of science who explored some of the theories, some of the processes underlying the scientific method. For Kuhn, he was specifically interested in what brings about paradigm shifts. What are the features of a situation that cause us to go from one way of thinking to another? What are the realities that cause us from going from a world where phone booths are everywhere to one where they're a novelty? Kuhn turned to the scientific method, the method I'm sure many of us are familiar with, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but essentially, the scientific method is about making observations, observing things in the world, and based on those observations, putting together narratives that help us to operate. It's a process. And sometimes things over time that are held to be true end up shifting. What causes this shift? Kuhn outlined a pattern. He said that there's essentially 5 different stages that are involved in making a paradigm shift. The first stage is the stage where we all start. It is what he calls normal science. If we think back to the hero's journey story sermon from a few months ago, that's that sort of ordinary world starting place. This is the way things are right now. This is how we describe gravity. This is how we describe the electrical forces, etc. However, as new technology comes in, new instruments and new observations are made, eventually we enter what Kuhn calls stage 2. He names this the model drift stage. It's the stage in which we start to find irregularities or things within our current understanding, our current scientific theories that can't quite be explained. Our model starts to drift and we start having to maybe look at some new possibilities. If this drift happens long enough and we cannot explain what is happening, then we enter the phase that is named as model crisis. This is the phase where a lot of things are called into questions. Assumptions about what this force is are now being re-examined, which leads to the next stage, the model revolution. I think gravity is the example in the scientific community that is most sort of illustrative of this for me. I think about our understanding of gravity as it's changed over the years. We have the understanding from Newton, the guy who sat under the apple tree, has the apple hit his head, and we get this understanding of gravity. Eventually, though, as we started doing more complicated things, as we started trying to go out into space, as we started trying to make things orbit around our planet, we realized that that model of gravity didn't quite meet the needs. It shifted. Einstein proposed a new theory of how things are connected to each other, a theory of relativity, that the force of any one or any two objects are constantly interacting on each other. This revolution caused us to enter that final stage, the stage that Kuhn was interested in, the paradigm shift, the shift from one way of thinking or viewing things to another. It's through this process in his in a 1977 article that Kuhn explores several different areas of science, including biological sciences, and applies this model. I'm not even going to remotely pretend that I am enough of a science person to go through all of the details. I will say, though, that I trust what he says, and there's a reason scientists say the things that they do, and I trust them for that most of the time. I also don't expect you to remember all of these stages. I really just share it so that way you can see the way in which these processes work as things change. It's not just in science, though. There is a field of theology. It's a 20th century advent, pretty new in the theological world, known as process theology. Process theology is a form of theology that is about engaging with things. It's about engaging in the process. For process theologians, it's often said that God, or whatever we're going to call the sacred, that thing that is most large and unified, that God is not a noun, not a proper noun or a being, but rather God is a process. God is a process. Some people express this by saying God is a verb. And for process theologians, the divine, the holy, the sacred is made manifest when we come together and engage in processes. When we come together and share with each other in community and know that through this we will be changed. People today don't use phone booths, not because the need to talk to each other or communicate verbally has gone away. People today don't use phone booths because we have a better tool. We don't use phone booths because we have a better tool. In the past few years, I think many of us have experienced a lot of interruptions in our lives. COVID, state of the politics, currently, economic circumstances with inflation, they're changing assumptions that we have made about the world. Things are changing. Oftentimes, when we are confronted with change, I know, at least for myself, there's a tendency to want to cling to things that feel solid. You want to cling to things that feel comfortable. I want something like a phone booth that I know how to interact with and use, and that's not always possible. Things change. And in the face of change, the question becomes, what do we do? Do we say that, well, the phone booth served us well before, let's build a better phone booth? Or do we begin looking at new options? We begin engaging in processes together and allowing the things that come out of these processes to become our new reality. There's an emergence to it. When was the last time you saw a phone booth that worked? It's been a while. Lots has changed, and the church is not exempt from that change. The church as an institution is not exempt from that change. I think that there are many different religious communities that have done a much better job, actually, at responding to changes than, I would say, liberal religious folks. Despite our openness theologically, we oftentimes are very rooted in our traditions, the way things were done. They're comfortable, they're safe, they're known. But as the world has changed, the reality is that our congregations do not always meet the needs of our communities. They're not always relevant in the way that they used to be a century ago. Evangelical churches accelerate, I believe, at engaging with change. They have committed themselves to not just building a better phone booth, but building something else entirely. And frankly, I find some of the strategies very off-putting. I think that there's a high social pressure that comes with a lot of the evangelical movement. But one of the things that I think they offer to communities like ours is a way of rethinking what church can be. Perhaps you've heard of communities that instead of a traditional service are meeting in coffee houses, doing different things. I know of an evangelical community in LA that has created an art center. Their whole purpose is about exploring religion and spirituality through art. They found a need in the community and embraced that process of change. They didn't try to just build a better phone booth. One of the things that has come up, and this is just a pondering of my own, and it's come out of some conversations in the Interfaith Council here locally. Did you know that there is not a laundromat on Bainbridge Island? There is not a laundromat on Bainbridge Island. Now, for many of us, this might not seem like a big deal. I know at home, I have my washer and dryer where I can go throw things in there. But that's not true for everyone. People who are experiencing homelessness depend on laundromats. Working class and low-income families depend on laundromats. There is an expressed need here. This is just one example. An expressed need here. As I think about our values and what we're doing and how we can put those values into action in a way that is relevant, the question becomes, well, why couldn't we start a laundromat? It seems maybe a little silly, maybe even mundane. But the truth is that I believe that when we can respond to the needs of our community, when we can try to innovate, to engage together, to create change, that we grow and we build connections. Some things are no longer useful. At times, the way we did things no longer serves us, and when that happens, rather than just continue to do the same thing, I believe we're called to innovate. It's not just for the leaders among us. It's not just me and the board. It's not just those of us in the room. It's up to each of us to engage in this process and figure out how we're going to move beyond that impulse to simply build a better phone booth. Our goal is to find connection and meaning and be transformed. And sometimes, in order for this transformation to happen, we need to commit to building something new, to the glory of life. I'd like to now invite us to don our masks as you, if you would, and rise as you feel so called as we prepare to sing our closing hymn of the service. Hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry.
Please repeat after me as I extinguish our flaming chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our service has ended, but our service to the world and one another begins anew. As we go forth, may we have deepened our relationships in this time and be willing to accept the changes the world sends our way with grace and gratitude. May it be so.